What's happening, guys? Happy Sunday and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we're going to kick off 4 weeks of rankings. Everybody loves Dynasty rankings. I love Dynasty rankings. I love doing Dynasty rankings. And I also love my co-host. That's right, he's back. Last week, not his fault, but that's why we call him the man of the hour and the man with the power. Jerry Sinclair, buddy, what's going on?
Nothing. Excited to be here because it's been a while, right? Like
I mean,
had to
like
host, I had
once
to
in
host
5
a week.
weeks.
Yeah, that's it is our worst run in
But
since
we
we
did
started.
show. We did, brother.
We
did
did not
miss
miss a show. Even
You know,
even when you were gone, we did a show,
well,
which is
well,
absolutely
I
miraculous.
was proactive. I reached out to the one and only Matty Kiwoom, fantastic host, Trade Gods, all the podcasts that he hosts, and not only Matty, but shout out to all the guys. We've had Casey Myers from the FF Dynasty, the newest partner podcast from Player Profiler. Tyler Knabley, as I like to call him, the youngest up-and-coming fantasy analyst in the business. Theo Grimminger, Dan Williamson, and just Bradley Stalder. I always want to say Stadler, but that's not right. The L and the D are Stalder. We've been blessed to have a lot of help from our Player Profiler brothers over the last 5 or 6 weeks, but we're going to get into rankings, Jerry, QB rankings. And now you and I just did 13 through 24 for our patrons. If you want to get that, that'll be up live on Monday because the patrons always get the podcast early and ad-free. All the commercials taken out, and they get anywhere from 15 to 25 extra minutes of content. And what we did was we covered 13 through 24. Now you have a guy in 13 through 24 that I have like in the top 6. So that's going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah,
but I'm going to steal from our buddies at the FF Dynasty. They call their patron the $5 holler. You know, that's the same with ours. So you get in the group chat, a chance to be in leagues, the opportunity to make fun of Jerry with the rest of us. It is quite a thing to be able to stop by and do, but we've got a jam-packed show. We've got to get into this, but I told Theo I'd play a word from the FFPC.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
He always nails those commercials.
Go get
The Podfather nails those commercials. Yeah, check out our friends at the FFPC. All right, now, Jerry, it was just over 2 weeks ago, you sent me a candidate for good people, bad tweets. And I almost used that in last week's show with Tyler Knabley. But instead, we talked a little bit about NCAA Football 25 in that segment where we normally do good.
Did you buy it? You're not a huge video game guy.
I have a soon-to-be 17-year-old who is a video game guy. I coach 14 other soon-to-be 17-year-olds that play baseball. It literally. So before we get into good people, bad tweets, I'm gonna veer off down a rabbit hole for a second. NCAA Football 25 literally created the worst performance in a tournament that we had all year. The week that game came out, like I'd say 2/3 of them bought the early bird edition, so they got it on Tuesday. That was literally the Tuesday before our biggest tournament of the year because it was a 5-game guarantee. You played Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was just huge. And these guys, and of course, because I believe there's a sense of humor out there, some higher power, the sense of humor out there. We drew like 8 a.m. games on Wednesday and Thursday. Come to find out later, our starting left fielder and one of our best hitters literally did not go to bed. He literally played NCAA football from the time that the time that it released to play on PlayStation until the time he had to leave to come to the tournament. And then you might think, well, he went home and went to bed. You'd be wrong. He went home and played more NCAA 25. It is addictive. My son is upstairs right now playing this game. He's already on his second season. He just transferred from Central Michigan University. Go Antonio Brown. Currently a member of the U, Jerry. Currently, Vinny is a member of the U. That is NCAA 25. What is your review, quickly, as we get into good people, bad tweets?
I mean, I'm in my mid-30s. I grew up on that game. Obviously, I love it. I say your left fielder needs a statue built of him, because while you may be upset that his baseball performance was lacking, NCAA trumps that nonsense, my friend. That's a real man. That is a manly man, and I'm proud of him personally. The game's awesome, and I am a child again, and I love every second of it. But anyway, good people, bad tweets. What you got?
I will say one last note on NCAA football. So my son had done something, and his mom was yelling at him. He was like, hands me his control and says, "Here, play this. Don't mess up my game." I'm like, okay. Literally, first defensive play, forced a fumble. 3 offensive plays later, we were in the end zone for 6, and I paused it. And he's like, "Do you know how to play this game?" I was like, "I played Madden long before you were born, pal." So I'm more of a Madden guy. You're the NCAA guy. But here's the thing: it gets a 5-star, gold star review from both Jerry and I. Now let's get into this good people, bad tweets that you and I saved. I saved for this conversation with you, and I'm going to let you start this one because it come from Austin Abbott FF. And these are 27 wide receivers that he would pay at least 1 first-round pick for. Now, Jerry, you saw this list. You sent it to me. And when Jerry sends me a tweet or in the comments, he @s me and puts the handwriting emoji, I know that means it's going to be on good people, bad tweets. And I agree, but I'm going to give you the right of first refusal because you brought this one to me.
Like, I don't even want to pick on this man because of some of the valuations that he gives for the wide receiver, because it's literally a list of 27 wide receivers, all top of the game stuff. It's just absurd prices, but that's not exactly my point. Like, I'm not paying 3 mid-firsts for Garrett Wilson to get me 1,100 yards. You're out of your fucking gourd. Like, yeah, AJ Brown's good. Amon-Ra's good. And you can pay that. I mean, I'm not paying 3 firsts of value for virtually any human being.
Anybody now.
QBs in a super flex. Sure.
Elite
QBs.
Yes.
In a super
we're gonna talk about some of those guys, and maybe we'll mix that in with the show.
Yeah.
But yes, in super flex quarterback, like Josh Allen, I think I'd give 3 firsts for Josh Allen. But that'd be a stretch. That would be a legit stretch.
But where I draw the line is, like, you get into the Drake Londons, DJ Moores, DK Metcalfs, 2 late firsts, Puka Nacua, Chris Olave, 2 early firsts, T. Higgins, mid first and a second, blah, 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 whatever. Irrelevant. The point is, let's look at these names, Randy. Ready? I'm just going to go 1 to 27. You tell me which one of these guys wasn't a first-round pick in your rookie draft over the last 3 or 4 years. CeeDee Lamb, he was. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably a second-round pick. Marvin Harrison Jr. sure was. A.J. Brown was. Garrett Wilson. Puka wasn't. Malik Neighbors, Olave.
I don't want to cut you off, but like AJ Brown was probably, especially now in 1 QB, he was definitely in the first round in Superflex. I saw plenty of leagues where that people disliked the landing spot of Tennessee so much he did slip to some second rounds,
which is fair. So he's even cheaper than a first, is what you're saying.
All right, 100%.
So
not now.
Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore's older, Drake London, Rome Odunze, DK Metcalf, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. So the point is, and I'm going to just regurgitate something that one Randell Young has said often on this podcast. The NCAA is gifting dynasty players elite wide receiver talent year after year after year. So if you pay this many firsts for this many people, you are flushing value down the drain. Just hold on to the first and pay this type of talent with that pick. Why am I trading 3 firsts for Garrett Wilson when I can use the first next year and get an elite talent who can get me 1,100 yards, and I can still have 2 firsts worth of talent in my pocket? This is unactionable advice. It's polarizing. He got a ton of people to talk about it. Good for him. I'm looking at 99 comments and 500 likes and blah, 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 blah. And it's a spreadsheet, and it says things are super expensive. So people like to think that the players that they have on their team are worth this much, when in reality they should not be. If you believe Zay Flowers is worth a late first, by all means, I'm not going to argue with you. If you think Rome Odunze is an elite guy and he's worth 2, rock on, brother. CeeDee Lamb, I love CeeDee Lamb. I got more CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson than any other people on any of my rosters. I just traded for Justin Jefferson today. Traded a shitload for him. But more often than not, the whole point of this graph is to show how many of the absolute star players in the NCAA are coming into the NFL and performing extremely well. Save your picks. If you need wide receivers, they're going to gift them to you.
As you said, first of all, to put any list, whether it's rankings or a list on social media, takes courage. So I will commend him for having 100%. The courage. If you believe this and you're putting it out there, good on you, brother. Keep rocking. Keep doing the Lord's work. But as you were chatting this up, you gave me the idea. So I went through and looked from just this year's rookie class. You have he has 4 wide receivers in the top 27, and like Puka and Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice. Those guys, the NCAA is going to give you more next year, and you can use one of those 3 firsts you were going to give away for one of these guys and still have 2 future firsts. You know, the ones that get crazy to me, I mean, I can't give up in a single QB league. I can't give up multiple picks for too many people. It sets you back more than you know. And you're trading one guy. So, but let's say even on really good wide receivers, the hit rate's 67%. That means 2 of those 3 first you're going to give away for a wide receiver are going to be a hit. And that's kind of where I am. I get that wide receivers drive a lot of points, but with the rules of both the NCAA and the NFL, it's only going to drive more talent and the money they're getting. Good Lord, you saw the Justin Jefferson deal. You hear CeeDee Lamb wants to be paid. So it's only going to continue to encourage more really good young athletes to continue to play the wide receiver position. I think he's correct in that wide receivers are valuable and there are several worth trading up for. What I disagree with is the prices because it's not actionable. These are the kind of trades, and Jerry, you and I have been in these leagues. We've been playing Dynasty together for 10 years and doing the podcast for over 7 now. We have seen trades like this literally destroy teams and create orphans. We're in one league that some trades just like this has literally caused it to be where the other 11 of us are basically paying that GM. He's on a free roll for 2 years to put this thing back together. That's what these kind of trades create. So this is absolutely why I cannot agree.
100%. And we don't know what's going to happen. Like let's say you traded for Justin Jefferson legitimately today, several hours ago. I don't know what that situation is going to look like without Kirk Cousins. I don't know if Sam Darnold's going to be able to get him the ball the way that he deserves it to. I don't know if JJ McCarthy is going to. So if I pay 3 early first and a second, like Mr. Abbott says, and I set that on fire, and I end up with a back end QB or wide receiver 1, maybe a wide receiver 2 in Justin Jefferson, he pulls off 1,100 yard seasons. That's exactly the type of situation, because now I don't have first. Now I have a good wide receiver, but not the elite one that I paid for. My rebuild prospects are shot. No, absolutely don't. If wide receiver is the talent you need, if you want to spend, and maybe he did this for quarterbacks, I don't know if he did or not. If you want to pay the first, if you have, also, who just has 3 firsts? Usually it's rebuilders, and usually you're not just going to get one player, but that's a different story for a different day. I'll just say 3 firsts of talent. Don't do it on a skill position player. Please don't do it on a running back. I know this man did a running back list, and that's just going to piss me off.
Maybe we'll find that for next week.
I'm looking at it. It's not good.
But but because we want to respect his courage. I'm going to go mild, Dana White. You still got to get Dana White. It's a bad tweet. You're a good dude. Bad tweet. So Dana White is going to tell us what he thinks about this list.
Federal prison. Federal fucking prison. If you're that fucking stupid and somebody else wants to do it, knock yourself out. There's not enough money in it.
There you go. If someone else wants to pay 3 firsts plus for a wide receiver, let them. Cannot
just
do
a real caveat. I'm looking at the running back list. It's fine. It's not terrible.
Perfect. So check him out. Give him a follow. Costs $0 to give Austin Abbott FF a follow. Give that man a follow. And Jerry, on next week's patron show, I'll tell you a behind the scenes good people bad tweet show for you and the patrons. We'll do that next Sunday. All right, let's roll into this, man. Let's do our top 12. So here's what we'll do. I'll do 6. I'll do my top 6. Then you can do your top 6.
Cool.
We'll compare and contrast. And then
the first 6 are probably going to be relatively similar. We've got one disagreement for sure.
There's one disagreement we'll get into, so I'll just go to mine. Number 1, pretty simple, Josh Allen. And do you agree there?
Yeah, he's my one.
Okay. I know our friends at Player Profiler have Jalen Hurts 2, but I have Patrick Mahomes at 2. I know last year he finished like QB 9-ish in that Jared Goff range. And that's fine. If that's his floor, if that's his absolute worst possible year, great. What'd they go out and do? They went out and added Hollywood Brown. They went out and added Xavier Worthy. Andy Reid still loves to pass the ball. He's super safe. You know, there's an old saying in finance and like, you know, stocks and whatever. It's like, you'll never get fired buying IBM. You'll never get fired. You'll never get fired from a dynasty manager's job if you just take Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Now, this next one's going to be a little surprising because he doesn't have a huge rushing component, at least that we haven't seen yet, and that is C.J. Stroud. And this for me is a little out of character. A little out of character.
A little out of character?
A skosh. If you're watching live on YouTube, a smidge, a pinch, a dash out of character for me. Normally, like this is where I was killing my fellow dynasty analysts a few years ago for having Baker Mayfield this high. Exactly. And I will say this, that the past history does not always repeat itself. But I remember after 2 good seasons coming off of a knee injury, I remember how high the dynasty industry was on Carson Wentz. And those of you that have been playing for a while, don't act like I'm full of shit, because you know Baker Mayfield was being talked about like C.J. Stroud. You know Carson Wentz was being talked about like C.J. Stroud. This is a very risky play for me. I know they continue to invest in the offense. I think he's a good quarterback, and I'd love to see a little bit more rushing, but that not being, you know, a huge deal breaker, obviously. Number 4, Jalen Hurts. You know, it's kind of like, will the real Jalen Hurts please stand up? Was he the guy who absolutely smashed with Shane Steichen? Or was he the guy who didn't look the same? And last year, without the tush push, he's barely scraping the top 5 of fantasy QB points. I mean, those 15 rushing touchdowns really, really cemented him. And then now I'm curious to see what he does with Kellen Moore. So enough upside potential that I'm willing to risk it, but not so much that I would take some of these maybe what I feel like are safer, more consistent values. Number 5 is a big risk for me as well, but I'm banking on those wheels. It's Anthony Richardson. I'm also somewhat banking on Shane Steichen. Justin Herbert had his best year on with Shane Steichen. So did Jalen Hurts. We saw what Anthony Richardson was doing. My concern with Richardson is the injuries. Is like he literally played in 4 games last year and left all of them at some point for injury, and then ended the season with an injury. So there's definitely concern. I will throw this out there. Like if I were to draft a Jalen Hurts or an Anthony Richardson here, I would most certainly stack them later with a very safe QB. A Goff would be perfect. I mean, Goff would be the chef's kiss of the QB2 to have with a guy like Richardson or Hurts. And then 6, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, come back looking like speaking of Slim Shady, come back looking like early 2000s Slim Shady with that new hairdo. But that is my top 6, Jer. What are your thoughts on my first 6 QBs? And biggest reaches, things you disagree with? Go.
Well, let's it's different. It's different than mine. I thought we were going to be chalk. We are not chalk, my friend. Randy's got his jug of piss there is what it looks like for everyone.
You know, you're not the first person to say that. It's just some lemonade and amino acids.
Okay.
For the YouTube, if you want to go to YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast on Wednesday, and you
seen one.
That's the problem. And my wife said, "Are you drinking piss?" And I'm like, "What the are you talking about?" It's literally yellow. What color is yellow? What color is lemonade, Jerry?
It's yellow.
Okay, and then you put in some raspberry red amino acids. Red and yellow make pee. Looks like pee. Anyway, sorry, you've distracted the entire show with my jug OP.
So flabbergasted by your jug of piss that I broke my microphone. Yeah, as far as Allen Mahomes, that is what it is. Now I got to hold this thing the whole time. All right, I'm going to be Britney Spears for this podcast. All right, so see, does this sound bad? Because I'm literally holding my microphone. Okay,
you look great. You look like an MC.
Thank you. CJ Stroud is spicy for you, and I say that with my whole chest, bud. Now, as the person on this podcast that liked CJ Stroud the most, you have him higher than me. So are you just buying into all of the talent plus what we've seen? Because here's where it's different than Baker Mayfield and Carson Wentz to that extent. CJ Stroud showed that he was an elite quarterback and could hang in the league.
I agree, but remember, in some respects, Mac Jones had a better rookie year than Andrew Luck. So it's 1 year. The numbers were tremendous. He broke records. He's really, really good. And while it's a risky move, I will tell you that, like, if I'm at 3, I'm looking to trade back. If I can get someone who wants to come up and get their guy and I can slide back to the 8-9 range, I would much rather have the guys at the 8-9 range and the value I would get with them. But in a vacuum, it's like you can't trade. You can only select. These are the guys with both the youth, the upside, the range. So that's why I put CJ Stroud as high as I did. And here's the thing. Like, we won't talk. You can become a patron and you can go get the patron podcast and you can see where I had Tua. But I think the worst case, the absolute worst, he falls off the floor. And what's the worst case scenario? CJ Stroud becomes Tua. I mean, even if you invest QB3 overall prices into the guy, what's he going to finish? QB8? That's kind of the thing, though, that makes it spicy for me. I'm sorry. You keep beating up my list.
No. You're going to beat up mine once we get there. I'm not beating it up. I mean, he's only a few spots ahead of mine. It's wild for you. And I just wanted to get the reasoning behind it. Now, credit to you for realizing the error of your ways and realizing that I am, in fact, the smarter, prettier, more handsome, probably stronger for sure co-host on this podcast. Not any of that.
Or definitely
Jalen
handsomer.
Hurts. Jalen Hurts. That one's fine. Anthony Richardson. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson.
No. You can't say where between 13 and 24 you had Anthony Richardson. But
just a spoiler. So on this show, I'm not going to talk about Anthony Richardson aside from this moment because he's not in my top 12. But that makes me weird. Like that's not like I think you're crazy for having him at 5 and you're going against the grain. I'm the one that's going against the grain with Anthony Richardson. I think the reason I'm going to talk about it is for what you said. He's played in 4 games. We haven't seen him play any full games. And I don't know that is going to change. He had a late breakout in college. I just don't know that man is going to stay upright. I don't know the longevity of it, and I am not willing to trust it. So I was going to say this little caveat, and I said it to the Patreon, so they're going to have to hear it a second time. But I was going to do it when I did my rankings, but I'm going to do it now. So the reason I ranked the people the way I did was I based it on it's a startup, and if I don't have a quarterback, this is going to be the person I take as my QB1. And I don't have confidence in taking Anthony Richardson as my QB1. It's a very risky play. And with my QB1 on a dynasty startup, that is one thing that I'm not going to be risky about. There are times where I will gamble a lot. That is one of those positions where I will not. So that is why he is so far down my list.
All right,
and I'm fine. I'm fine that you have him there. I don't think it's crazy because if he hits, I'm the one that looks like an idiot, 100%.
But that's fair. It takes a little bit more courage for you to have him where you have him, and it's easier for me to say at 5 because then I get that, which I didn't really think of it until you worded it the way that you did. I get to shrug my shoulders and go, well, everybody else had him there too. Whereas you are going out on a different limb, and if you're wrong, you can only look like a dummy. So you've taken all the risk. What about Joe Burrow at 6? Do you agree with Joe Burrow at 6?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I am gonna have him further down, but I think it's fine. This is another guy that just gets injured a little bit too much. And what's he gonna look like when T. Higgins isn't there after this year? And Joe Mixon isn't there to take some looks off the defense and get him into the end zone to keep the games close. I don't entirely know. Obviously, he's one of the great talents at the position. He's young. He's on a pretty prolific offense. He's tied to one of the elite wide receivers, and they have a great rapport, and they have had a great rapport even before their time in the pros. I'm fine with that. I got him a little bit less, but as far as my rankings go, you got to do any ads or anything before I just start rolling?
No, man. Okay, we're going to hear your
you're,
6.
You're the businessman. I just ramble.
Yeah,
so,
you know what? When I call it a game, you call it a business. When I call it a business, you call it a game.
So as the game goes, our first 2 guys are the same. Josh Allen, I have him at 1. I have Patrick Mahomes at 2. If you flip flop them, I'm fine with that. I don't know how you have a situation where those aren't the 2 guys. Josh Allen is perennially the QB1, and Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback talent in the league right now. He's tied to a head coach in that team for 8 more years or something. I mean, he's there. He's in Kansas City. He's with Andy Reid. Andy Reid's not going to leave because he's got Patrick Mahomes, and they can make magic happen, and they will be contenders for the entirety of that period. That is as stable a situation as any dynasty manager has ever hoped for in any year that this game has ever been around. That's a blessing. And also, it's a steal because now we're seeing how much quarterbacks are getting paid. They absolutely stole that man. As far as number 3 is concerned, Jalen Hurts, not the biggest Jalen Hurts guy in the world.
Splitting hairs. We're splitting hairs. I have 4, you have 3. I mean, we're in the same pocket.
Yeah, but as far as Jalen Hurts is concerned, I don't love him. I don't feel super confident when I have him. I don't know the longevity of that situation and how successful it will be going forward. We have seen Jalen Hurts fall off the map. We saw him fall out of love with Nick Saban. We have seen it. We saw a guy that was going to win the Heisman in Oklahoma, and then he fell off a little bit. And then last year, they looked like they were ready to go back to the Super Bowl. And that last month of the season, they turned into pumpkins. I'm a little nervous, but also everything he has shown fantasy-wise, he's an elite asset. I can't not put him there. Lamar Jackson, somebody you didn't have. I mean, we're talking about a 2-time MVP, man. The leading
side note, one MVP for each playoff game that he's won. Keep going.
Listen, but I don't give a shit about playoff wins because they don't count for my fantasy championships. I mean, he is the absolute premier rushing quarterback in the history of the league. You can take Michael Vick and you can shove him down your throat. Absolutely not. Lamar Jackson does circles around that man, both as a passer and as a rusher. Listen, I would love for him to get a little bit more help than he's been getting from his pass catchers, but I can't go wrong with him. Number 5, CJ Stroud. He's the youngest, most elite quarterback that we have right now. And on top of that, Tank Dell is healthy. They brought in Stephon Diggs. They brought in a pass-catching running back in Joe Mixon. Holy shit. We always talk about Baker Mayfield, you know. He got a little bit of hype when he was a rookie. Then they brought in Odell Beckham. He jumped up to Dynasty too. But he didn't have the numbers that CJ Stroud did. And yes, they brought in Odell Beckham, but he did not have the plethora of talent around him like CJ Stroud does. That's a good situation for a long time that you can't go wrong with. Number 6, the guy that I'm surprised you don't have. I'm guessing he's going to be coming up pretty quick here. Justin Herbert. Is it the Jim Harbaugh thing?
We'll get into it. I missed who did you have at 5? You went Lamar, then who?
CJ Stroud.
Okay, yeah, we're just talking about him and my crazy ranking of him. And then Herbs. I'll talk about Herbs after the break. We have a break coming up. I'll talk about Herbs after the break. Why do you like him this much? I like him. So you mentioned earlier CJ Stroud. Like if I could now again, this is in a vacuum. This is Memphis. You don't get a trade. You just have to pick them. You're on the clock. You're getting no way out of it. You got to take him. Then I got to do what I got to do. But I would rather trade back and get a guy like Justin Herbert and all the extra plus. No, I'm still big on Herbert. We'll get into him in a minute. I would love to because I would love to hear what you have to say.
Listen, and Justin Herbert is not going as QB6. He's going later than that. And I'm fine. I just traded CJ Stroud for Justin Herbert plus. And it wasn't even a ton of plus. In fact, one of the people in the league texted me and was like, "What are you doing?" I don't think they're that different. I think CJ Stroud is a 2 years younger version of Justin Herbert. And I think Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than him. And yes, CJ Stroud has better pieces, but I just think Justin Herbert's better. And I think Jim Harbaugh yes, he has run the ball extensively, but he knows what he has in Justin Herbert. And I think he is going to use him to his fullest potential. And it may be a rough year, and I'm fine with that. As far as guys that we're going to be talking about on this podcast for another 7 years, I got news for you. Justin Herbert's one of them. We're not that man's going to be on this podcast in 2031.
Jerry, we're going to talk about my opinion on Justin Herbert here in just a minute after the break. But you don't have to remind this audience how much I love Justin Herbert. I was the one who talked about him, starting all those games in college. I talked about how smart he was because he was a chemistry major and was like a 4.0 student. I love that he was a dog. Yes, I've been on the Justin Herbs train for a long, long time. And I'll tell you what, I've threatened this commercial break twice. Let's get it out of the way. But something Jerry's part of this year, that's the 2024 Player Profiler Draft Kit.
Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team, and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team-level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated ARs. And we added a bunch of features. I mean, individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league, the best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit, PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
Was that a Randell Young appearance there in that commercial?
Yes, sir. This is my second year in a row. We just refurbished a little last year's commissioner section. But if you're a new commissioner, or you're starting a dynasty league, or you're starting your redraft league and you commission, it's in there. And I want to quote Jerry Jones, and he's going to have to live up to this because he's got a bunch of guys wanting a bunch of money, right? But Jerry Jones once said, "Nice things aren't cheap, and cheap things aren't nice." So if you want a nice thing, you want a nice draft kit, go to Player Profiler for your redraft seasonal needs. Download the draft kit. Jerry, you did a guy. This year.
I did it. My work transferred me up to Minnesota, so I was in a Minneapolis hotel.
So who did you do?
Derrick Henry, the king, man.
Only one of us did a Detroit Lion. It was me, Jahmyr Gibbs. All right, man, let's get back to these QBs. So I'm gonna go ahead and bust out my 7 through 12 because it will layer into some of the guys that you had in 1 through 6.
Yep.
So I have Lamar Jackson at 7, and that's not a knock at Lamar Jackson. You just mentioned part of the reason why I'm not as bullish on Lamar Jackson after a second MVP season. On basically on a per games basis, it was actually one of his lowest rushing per game of his career. He played all 16 games and rushed 148 times. Comparison, in his first MVP season, he rushed 176 times in 15 games. So essentially 28 less attempts in one more game. And then you add Derrick Henry. What does that tell me they want to do? It tells me that they're trying to protect Lamar. They're paying him a bunch of money. For an amazing athlete, he continues to get more slight. Like, I think he lost another 15 pounds this offseason, give or take. I'm like, my man, going to be nothing left. I'm going to be going to Baltimore and bringing Lamar sandwiches. But this is higher than I had him last year at this time. Last year I had him around that 9-10 range, and I am showing the two MVPs the respect. You already mentioned him, my guy, Justin Herbert. Sir, there is going to be a lot of sad people. Can I ask you a question?
Shoot.
Because both things can't be true. If Jim Harbaugh is going to rush the ball from infinity to beyond, why didn't they draft a running back? I mean, Blake Corum was the running back that he rode to a national championship in Michigan, somehow passed on him 3 times in the draft.
Yeah.
And if they were going to rush the ball to infinity and beyond, would they do it with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins? I don't think so. I think you fight fire with fire. I think how you beat Patrick Mahomes, I think how you have to keep up in that division to win that division, because what's the best chance of playoff success? Winning your division. What is your best asset? Justin Herbert. I know people didn't like Mike Williams leaving. They didn't like Keenan Allen leaving. That's fine. We continue. Now, not to get into preseason camp hype yet, but did you see some of the catches that Ladd McConkey's making? I'm telling you, people are sleeping on Justin Herbert, having him as low as 10-11. That is ridiculous. This one right here might surprise some people because I have Caleb Williams at 9. And this is me in a weird pickle, a picadillo, if you will, a little bit of a pickle. And I want to respect the talent. I want to respect the weapons. I want to respect the OC. My concern, and it's also very, very similar to why I didn't have Tua that high. For me, it's the weather. There is a real chance when you're the Chicago Bears quarterback that and I know it's picking nits. You got to get to the playoffs to win the playoffs. But man, how many games have you seen in Chicago where they have like this giant fog bank, or it's snowing sideways or raining sideways? It's the little things, but and he's not taking an NFL snap. I think I'm being more than fair by putting him in my top 10 as a rookie. I'm showing the draft pedigree, the draft capital, the weapons. I think I'm doing a fair job of treating him fairly. And this next guy could be a tremendous value. And I'm actually kind of surprised I had him in my top 12. But I literally said, if I had to draft right here, which quarterback am I taking? Kyler Murray. Healthy. Another year removed from the knee issue. They added Marvin Harrison Jr. We saw a big step forward from Trey McBride. I think Michael Wilson has something to offer in this offense. And look at the competition. The Cardinals are going to have to score to keep up with the Niners. They're going to score to keep up with the Rams. And Seattle's offense with those three wide receivers should be good. So you mean to tell me I have a guy who has the rushing component with really good weapons in a division where you got to score? Oh, yeah. And like you're on the West Coast, so the weather's not as much of an issue. Really like Kyler Murray, which again, I'm showing some, I'm changing my ways a little bit, Jerry. Yep. And then we talked about how right I was on Justin Herbert, and I was. Let's talk about another guy that I was very high on, and Jordan Love. I have Jordan Love at 11, and that I wrote these rankings after he secured the bag. So I didn't have him that high before he got the contract. But now that the contract's in place, they continue to put weapons around him. I think LaFleur, the head coach, is a very good play caller. We'll continue to see this kid succeed. This is one of those things where it does not hurt Drake May. It does not hurt J.J. McCarthy. It does not hurt these young guys to sit. It didn't hurt Patrick Mahomes. For the love of God, it didn't hurt Patrick Mahomes. The Chargers were going to do this with Justin Herbert. It does not hurt these guys to sit. They mature. They have a chance to learn the NFL game. In the case of Mahomes and Love, they learned it from some great quarterbacks, especially Love with Aaron Rodgers. And, Patrick Mahomes had, I'm drawing Alex Smith. He had Alex Smith as a mentor. So the sitting thing didn't bother me. Very happy for Jordan Love. He's a stud. And then 12, Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy will get the contract this time next year. Right now he's still making that Mr. Irrelevant cash. My concern with Brock Purdy will be very similar to the conversation I said with Tua, is what happens when the big money kicks in and Tua can no longer afford to have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, all these weapons around him. What does Brock Purdy look like when his big money kicks in and he can no longer afford to have Kittle? Maybe it's Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. When you start losing some pieces, do you start losing a little dynasty value? So that is my top 12, Jerry. That is 7 through 12. Any rocks you want to throw at me for my rankings?
No. We have a few differences for sure, but I'm fine with all of it for the most part. I have all of those guys, the guys that I don't have in my top 12, pretty close right after in 13 through 24, which you could find at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. As far as, you know what? We'll just roll into mine because it's similar.
Okay. And then we'll just have some conversation.
Yeah, because I've got one guy in here. I don't want to surprise you that you don't have. But other than that, it's pretty similar. As far as 7, Kyler Murray. Now, bro's got to stay upright. But first and foremost, there is as far as running quarterbacks are concerned, he is number 2 behind Lamar, and I don't think it's close. We're talking about a guy that ran a 4.3 40 for crying out loud, and he has shown that he likes to run it. It's trickled down a little bit. as it should, just like you mentioned in your Lamar episode where they want to keep him upright. Same sort of thing needs to happen with Marvin Harrison Jr. or with Kyler Murray. He's got Marvin Harrison Jr. that should help improve that passing game a little bit. Trey McBride emerged as a potential star from the tight end position. So I'm all aboard. I feel like his floor, if he plays, is still a QB1. Now you got to worry about the injury 100%, but his ceiling is probably QB3, QB4 overall. That's a deal for me. Number 8. This is something that I did, and clearly you were a little skeptical about it with your own rankings too, and it's something that I hate doing. But at some point, you got to put the rookie in there. I did Caleb Williams at 8. Here's the thing. First overall pick, you got DJ Moore, you got Keenan Allen, you got Rome Odunze, you got DeAndre Swift. You have all of the pieces in place to be a successful quarterback. If you plug in 25 different quarterbacks into that situation, they are going to bump up my rankings just because of that situation. And then you're going to put in a guy who is profiles as an elite prospect. I have to put him there. Like I just do. It's a very risky play. And for the same reason that I said I didn't like to put Anthony Richardson as high as you had him, it is a risky play. But also, it's just based on the fact that if he is not built for this league, we're going to find out very quickly and it'll fall off the map. But if he is capable, which all directions point to him being capable, he's going to be on this list and he's going to be somebody that we talk about in 2035 on this podcast. So Caleb Williams there. Joe Burrow, number 9. You had him at 6. I've got him at 9. I need to see you playing, buddy. He's good when he plays. But, brother, the number one ability is your availability, to use a cunty line. But it is a prevalent and it is a truthful line. Number 10, Randy. Randy. Ready? Tua Tagovailoa. Let's go, baby. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle. He finished as QB9 last year. He finished as QB 15 in 13 games the year before that. Look at Randy. He's scrambling. He's got to look up his stats to tell me why I'm wrong. Randy, he just got the bag too. He's a secure, safe asset. So if you're going to tell me that I have a secure, safe asset who is just now starting to hit into his prime and he is improved on his touchdowns every single year, 11, 16, 25, 29, he's still got Tyreek. He's still got Waddle. He's got A-Chain who can, if he dumps it, that's a 75-yard touchdown. Those are Tua's points too. I have to put him in there. I just do. And I'm also a Tua guy. And now I understand that, you have him quite a few spots lower, which if you listen to the Patreon, you would find that out. But that would also surprise exactly 0.0 listeners of the Dynasty WarZone podcast. Number 11, Dak Prescott. I went with an old guy. You know why? Because he's effing good, man. And he's trusty and he's reliable. And it seems like he's always available when I want him to be. Everybody takes a ton of quarterbacks and I pick in the back half. I like to pick at pick 10. And it seems like Dak's always there either at the end of the first or that quick loop around in the second. QB 11, Dak Prescott. He's got CeeDee Lamb. I think the Cowboys are going to give him a contract. So I think he's going to be tied to CeeDee Lamb. I mean, we'll see. We talked about the Raiders and stuff. But I don't foresee a situation where Jerry Jones goes after something that's not solid. He likes money and he likes stars and he likes product, and Dak Prescott is absolutely a product. And number 12, Jordan Love. This is pretty much just because of the bag. It's not that I don't believe in him. It's not that I don't believe he is good. I believe he is good enough, and I believe the pieces around him are good enough, and he is a secure asset that I can now rely on. So yes, I'm going to put him at 12. If you would have asked me this a week ago, I probably would have had him at about QB 17.
Okay, who is that again? One more time.
Jordan Love.
Okay. I apologize. I was answering trade questions in the chat, and we're still talking Herbert at a great clip. See, this is why you have to watch live on Player Profiler's YouTube channel. You know, I will totally ignore my co-host for you, the listeners. I guess in this case, viewers. I will totally ignore him at a whim to answer your trade questions when we can in the chat. Okay, Jordan Love. So I'm sitting here going over my list versus your list, because we are literally one different on Jordan Love. I have 11, yep. You have 12. So I don't think that's a huge debate. I think we're treating him fairly there. I think there's much to debate. Okay.
Yep.
Dak, who I covered in the 13 through 24, but we don't have that big of a gap. He barely missed that's what they call a tease. I barely missed Dak, and it was, if he had got the long-term contract, then maybe he would have creeped in at 12 instead of Brock Purdy. But as of right now, when there's real talk that he could be a Raider in 2025, I've got to factor that into his, not his seasonal price, into his dynasty price. Joe Burrow. Well, how about this? We'll talk about Joe Burrow and Tua. We'll wrap this mug up with Tua.
Okay.
You were too heavy on Kyler compared to me, but I think 7 versus 9's pretty much in that same tier. And then you have Caleb Williams 1 higher than me. You have 8. I said 9. I don't think there's much of a debate there. I think we feel very much the same about him. Let's talk Joe Burrow. So the injury concerns are your concern.
Yeah.
But does that then make the 2 seat? So will he get the Lamar Jackson bump if he plays all 16 games this year, 16, 17 games? Because that's essentially what you did for Lamar. Because the
100%.
previous 2 years, it was 12 games, 16. He went from probably where Joe Burrow is now to where you have him at 4. So that would be consistent with your rankings. If Joe Burrow goes out and is Joe Burr, then this time next year, you could also have him in the 5-6 range.
100%. Because when he plays, he's what? QB like 5 overall. So
yeah, I know, especially in that division. You know, Cleveland's offense continues to hopefully get better. You know, Pittsburgh wants to try to compete, and we know the Ravens are going to score. We're talking about Burrow and Lamar. They're going to play each other. So again, a good division of offense.
So is it fair that I drop him because of that? Maybe not, and maybe it's recency bias. I can admit that, but if there's a mantra to my rankings, it's stability boosts where I am willing to go with you. Because like I said, this is my QB1. I am not effing around with my QB1 in a startup. I want them to be a secure asset that I can rely on year over year over year. And I have solid confirmed production. And I've seen 4 seasons from Joe Burrow. And when he plays, he's been great. But 2 of those seasons have been cut drastically short, and he has not been around for half of it. And that is not a stable asset for me when I'm relying on him. Because if he goes down, Jerry ain't winning. And if Jerry ain't winning, he's not happy.
So Jerry has admitted to being a poor loser. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for with your little rant there. I'd like to thank you for validating my rankings, because I have Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray between 6 and 10. You know, Burrow's in there, Lamar's in there, Kyler's in there. We got Herbs and the rookie Williams sandwiched in there. But I think that's pretty fair. I think I did a pretty fair job weighing the risk of injury and the reward. And you could even go up one more spot with Anthony Richardson, because all those guys have an injury risk to them. So thank you for validating my rankings. Now let's invalidate yours.
There you go.
Let's wrap this thing up with Tua Tagovailoa. Can they get that much? Can he buy Samoa with that? Is that where he's from? Tonga, Samoa? Is that enough? Is that contract $250? Is that enough? Is that more than the GDP?
I don't know. He's getting there for sure.
Can he buy a Pacific Island?
I'm
think
sure
he could.
I'm sure he can buy some,
At least one
somewhere for sure.
like one, like if he wanted to like buy it
Like a
and
little
name it like,
atoll or something.
yeah, you know, name it like Tua Island.
God,
I
that
feel
would
like
be
he's got that kind. I feel
that
like,
would be such a play.
dude, I may not be a Tua fan, but that'd be walking in and dropping your nuts on the desk.
Yes, it is.
Hey, I'd like to invite you to my island. What's it called? Tua Island. I named it after
Jealous.
myself. I bought it and named it after myself. I just can't. I mean, we talked about it more in the Before I Hit the Record Button podcast. We've seen his absolute tippy top. And maybe I'm a little too low on him, but I very much feel about him the way that I feel. And to a degree, eventually, now, in the case of Jordan Love, all of his weapons are on rookie deals. So by the time those guys are needing extensions or what have you, the Packers will have some time to make the deal. My question is what happens when Tua's deal kicks in next year? You know, Tyreek Hill saw all these other guys get broke off and taken care of. You saw Stephon Diggs get new money. You saw A.J. Brown get new money. You saw a lot of, and I think Devontae Adams is making that play to get more money. You know, Tyreek's going to be like, hey, I need more money. And I don't blame him. You know, his career, even though it's been amazing, is a lot closer to the end than to the beginning. So I don't blame him for getting his money, but can you afford 2 wide receivers? The Bengals can't, right? The Bengals just paid essentially Joe Burrow roughly what Tua's making. So either they're using different accountants in Miami or maybe not going to be able to do it either. And they're going to have to, and that's why we actually talked about this in our group chat, that's why I'm so bullish on Jalen Waddle. Our good buddy, Dr. Kyle, one of our original supporters, he talked about how he had just made a trade for Jalen Waddle in one of his big $1,500 FFPC leagues. So I just, like I said, I may be a skosh low, but like, you know, he's Jared Goff. And I'll just go get Jared Goff cheaper. Yeah, we did this when I beat you up for the trade of Tua.
100%.
I'll just go get Baker Mayfield cheaper.
No, okay. Let's say he's not in the same conversation as Baker Mayfield.
From what regard, good sir?
From a dynasty standpoint, Baker Mayfield could fall off the map in 13 months.
Tua couldn't. He
couldn't. No, he cannot, and you know that's true.
If he has another concussion, if he has another concussion and misses 8 games this year, he doesn't fall off the map next year.
No, because he's still under contract and he still has Jalen Waddle and he still has A-Chain. I don't know if he's going to have Tyreek. I think the Tyreek thing is absolutely a credible argument against him because Tyreek is a talent that is unmatched in the league. But
by the way, Baker Mayfield last year finished the season, this is weeks 1 through 17, as the QB 9. Tua, QB 10.
Yeah.
So from a points per game standpoint, I can just go get Baker Mayfield.
100%. And then you'll have to you got to hope that the next year you find the exact Baker Mayfield that does that again. And the next time, or I can just have the guy that does that. Because you say that he has found the ceiling, but he has legitimately progressed every single season. And I'm not saying that his ceiling is much higher, and maybe he has hit that ceiling, but I think it's pretty stable. I think what we have seen from Tua and where he is at, it's probably about where we're going. We're looking at QB 9 to QB 15 finishes for the next couple of years. And when you can guarantee that sort of production for 3 to 4 seasons, I don't think putting him at QB 10 overall when he's 26 years old or however old he is an egregious thing. I really don't. There's no shot in fucking hell that Tua is going to finish as a top QB, a top 5 QB in a season. Like, I'm not stupid. I know that. But there's no way that he's going to be QB
you are pretty,
20
though.
if he plays. Huh?
Yeah.
Like, and like Theo Darling says in the chat, like, I do think Tyreek is going to stay there because he can print money. They're an elite offense, no getting around that, and he's the quarterback of an elite offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And maybe it's because those guys are there. I don't care. Because if I have Tua, then I have the guy that gets them the ball and I get the points from it. And then I get to beat people. And that's what I want.
For me, it's all about the points. And before he got benched, Russell Wilson, who scored six
But
less.
he's not expensive either, though.
If I got to pay QB1 prices for a guy that I can get the
Listen,
it's all about
I put him here. The rest of the planet does not put Tua here, and you know it. You know what he is? Ready, Randy? You ready for the pinnacle of today's podcast episode? The comparison of who Tua is. Tua is Nickelback. Everybody loved Nickelback when it came out. This is how you remind me. It was fire. They dropped bomb after bomb after bomb. And then all of a sudden it became unpopular to like Nickelback. And oh my God, you listen to Nickelback. Oh my God. And then we stopped getting the memes about Nickelback. And then the playlist started coming back. And we realized, holy shit, Rockstar is a bomb-ass song. Look at Randy. I know he sings Rockstar on karaoke. He's got a wonderful voice, much better than my rendition of How You Remind Me. He's Nickelback. He's popular to hate right now, but he's not as bad as everybody is saying he is.
Nope. For me, it's not about him. It's about where I could get similar production. So I can't rank him that high. But you said a couple of things. So for those of you that leave reviews and comments and stuff about, oh, why aren't you talking about not fantasy stuff? Here's your thing. We'll just go ahead and make this simple for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the show. But you said a couple of things that reminded me, because we don't always just talk Dynasty here. So we're getting ready to talk not Dynasty. Okay. So you have been warned that this next 5 or 6 minutes is going to be non-fantasy. Pretty big movie came out over the can't do that. We'll get demonetized.
I know, that's why I had to mute it after like 3 seconds.
And then the Podfather will have to fire us. And we can't have that. But big cultural event over the weekend. Deadpool and Wolverine came out. Now, technically, you saw it before I did. I'm the Marvel nerd. I'm the one with Marvel tattoos. I mean, I'm the super nerd. But you went and saw it. So we're going to give you a spoiler-free, Jerry. A spoiler-free, because the thing that you said, you're like, in 2035, we're still going to be doing this podcast. It reminded me of the scene. This was in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything for anybody. It says, is that Wolverine? He's like, hell yeah, that's Wolverine. Disney's going to make him do this till he's 90. So I guess if we're going to be doing the podcast till 2035, Jerry's going to make me do it till I'm old and gray. So what were your thoughts on the movie? Without any spoilers. Remember, people don't know about all the cameos or all the stuff yet. And
no.
There's plenty of spoilers out there.
100%. And here's a little note of reference for me. It just happens to fall on date night. And so it came out that day. So we went and saw it. But I am not a superhero guy. I am not a superhero movie guy. I usually don't care about it. I have not seen all the Marvel films. I have not. I saw Endgame. I've seen a couple smatterings of them. It's just not my style. Like, I don't even think I've seen all of the Iron Man. And I know that is sacrilegious to a lot of people, including
You're blaspheming. You're blaspheming on this good podcast.
I'm sorry. It's just not my style. But I do think Ryan Reynolds happens to be hysterical. And I think him as Deadpool is hysterical. So it was good. I liked it. As a person who is not a superhero nerd, and it listen, if I was you and I knew all the little cameos and all the little weird things that happen, because I was there first day. So all you little gremlin nerds were in there and they were freaking out at different parts because of course they were. I had no idea about that stuff. So you would enjoy it more than I did for sure. But it was hysterical. Even as a person that's not a superhero movie, you can go see it. You will enjoy the shit out of it. I liked it.
Now, I am Hugh Jackman and Wolverine is my favorite comic book character of all time. I've been reading comics for decades.
They did a good job making him an awesome, like, badass too.
And he was so surly. It was Hugh Jackman has done a tremendous role. Like Logan, which I thought was going to be the last time we saw him play Wolverine, was is my favorite comic book movie of all time. I love that story. But I will tell you, my son, who's kind of like you, like he understands the majority of it, doesn't watch it to the degree or the level that I do. He went and saw it with me. So I didn't have to go see it by myself, which is I would have. I went and saw Black Panther 2 by myself and many others of the Marvel movies by myself. But he summed it up best. He's like, it was super entertaining. The cameos were great. The jokes were great. The visual imagery was great. He was like, but the plot was a little mid. And I thought that was beyond fair. That it was hysterical from like literally the opening scene to the very end. The fight sequences were great. The cameos were great. It set up a bunch of future stuff in the MCU. I thought it was great. And did you see? We can get into some real nerd shit, but we'll wrap this up. San Diego Comic-Con was this weekend. Did you see the big news?
I did.
So
that means nothing to me because I didn't.
I don't.
I know who the guy is, obviously, and
Right.
I know he's badass, and I like him. But
he is arguably, like, if you think of DC Comics, the best villain's the Joker. I think that's fair across that entire brand of comics, that the Joker is their pinnacle bad guy, the pinnacle villain for DC. If you were to do that for Marvel, that would have to be Doctor Doom. Thanos wasn't bad. Doctor Doom, definitely in that conversation. And this is no spoiler. This has already been all over everywhere. And it's Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to Marvel, but as a new character. And I like what he said in the little snippet I saw on YouTube. He said, different mask, same task. He's like, he's playing a different character, but the goal is to continue to entertain. I don't know. There is about 5 minutes of Marvel nerd stuff. Just such a good movie. I highly recommend it. You don't have to have a full comprehension of all of the movies.
That's the thing about Vinny's assessment of it. Like the plot was mid. Like I don't go in when I watch a Deadpool movie for the plot just because I'm not a superhero guy. Like I go in it for the joke. Like I watch it as a comedy movie strictly, and everything else that goes on is just sort of part of the picture. So I can respect that. Like I see where he's coming from, but like as a not nerd, good stuff.
Yeah, I will say I haven't literally laughed out loud like that in a movie in a long time. And I'm not talking superhero movie, but I'm talking like movie in general, where the jokes and the comedy is funny enough to literally make not only you, but the people around, which makes it even funnier, in my opinion, is when other people start laughing about the same joke that you're laughing about. It tends to snowball on top of itself. But I can tell by the number of people that are tuning in and tuning out that the Marvel content has brought this show to a close. We will be back, and we will be doing this exercise for the next 3 weeks. We're going to do it with running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. How we can help you guys with your dynasty rankings as we go into the season. And Jerry, do you have anything for these nice people?
You know, we just gave them 10 minutes of nonsense. I think that's a good way to get out of here.
I mean, it's perfect. We're right at an hour and like 8.5 minutes. So you got your hour of fantasy football content. You got a good people, bad tweets. You got some quarterback rankings. And then you got some Marvel, and a mini NCAA football review.
Sure.
But I think we've done our due diligence. I think we've done a good job. And I think we can take this one home. So I want to thank all of you guys for listening to the show. Check out the FFPC. Check out the draft kit. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. But at a minimum, you want to help us for free, rate and review the show. Subscribe everywhere on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.